What is happening out there, rotoscouts basketball fans? What's going on, gang? Not sure if anybody's here yet. Just trying to jump on, knock out a quick show. Was going to start this at like 4:30, and then Terry Rozier decided he was going to play, and I had to rerun all the Sims and everything real quick. So, going to be my first look at the new results as we start talking about it. Looks like we got a couple people hanging out here. Nobody said hi just yet, but hi to whoever you are hanging out there watching. I'm sure we'll have a few more folks come in and join us. I'm going to pop up to the top view here and just start talking about the slate instead of gabbing with people who may or may not be here. It's going to be an interesting one. 6-gamer on FanDuel running through the 8:30 games. 8-gamer on DraftKings running through the full slate. Always fun when they're completely different. That's why on the FanDuel side, the left side of the screen over here, you will see a bunch of blank spots because these guys aren't on that slate. The Hawks not on that slate. The Thunder not on that slate. San Antonio not on that slate. And so on and so forth. Golden State, I think, is the other one. Cujo Blue, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you, too. Couple of days, no shows. Was dealing with, I mentioned it in Discord yesterday. I was dealing with my eye. My left eye was driving me nuts. And it was whenever I put my contact in, it was like irritated and itching me like without the contact lens in. But anytime I put my contact lens in, it would just like explode with just like watering and get all red and everything. And somebody in Discord said, "Oh, that's conjunctivitis, man." And it's not, because it's like, it's totally clear now. What I think it was is I think I went like this and I pulled like a 6-inch long pet hair out of my eye. Not actually like that long. I think that was it. I did that this morning, and so far so good. We feel fine. So that was probably what was causing me those irritations. One of the joys of having pets. Between that and having pet hair all over the shirt every time I leave the house, it's always an interesting thing. I'm just looking back at... Got to respond to something real quick. Sorry, got sidetracked there. Anyway, it's always fun watching somebody text. Anyway. So yeah, back in action. The eye's feeling better. Can see. And couldn't see through my glasses. I would have done the show in glasses. But I mentioned that in Discord yesterday too. My glasses are all just scratched to shit because I never wear them. So they're like, you literally just cannot see. Like, I can get through the day with them on. I can kind of watch TV with them on. But to read these spreadsheets, I would be in here like in front of the camera, like squinting at this or going like this so that I could look through the bottom of the glasses. It's just a total mess. So anyway, good to be able to use contact lenses again. You ever think about that? Anybody who's nearsighted out there, like if you had been born like 500, 600 before whenever they invented glasses. I don't know how old glasses are. 600 years. Let's call it that. I think that's about right. If you had been born back then, if I had been born back then, the way that I'd be living in a tower somewhere. Like figuring out the expense sheet for the local Duke or something, hopefully. Still spreadsheets, obviously. We're still using spreadsheets. We're just locked in a tower, like a big feather quill, and just really, really close up. But like, just wouldn't be able to function. Like if I take my contacts out, no glasses, and somebody walked into the room, like I would have to squint to figure out who it was. Like, I cannot see. I should not. Should not. I never have and never would drive without my contacts. Something like that. It's just that, like, my eyes are bad. Trey says it's the eye industry. If we were doing eye exercises as a kid, you can fix your eyesight. I'm too far gone. I am a little bit dubious about the medical science behind that statement, Trey, but I'm sure it's possible. It is about like the shape of your eye. So I imagine like if you can get your eye into a different shape by exercising it somehow, then yeah. And obviously there is a huge industry there, all dominated by one company. That's why glasses and shit are so expensive. One company owns like every brand of eyewear, except for like the pop-up online ones that are like, the Warby Parkers and stuff. What is it? Luxottica, I think is the name of the company. An Italian company owns like every popular glasses brand. They own the lens manufacturers. It's a total monopoly. Should be way less expensive. Anyway, this is not the Vision 101 show. We are sorted by DraftKings win rates to start the slate, which makes sense because that's the one with all the games on it. Ignore Jeff Green up at the top there. He's obviously not relevant on the FanDuel slate, and he didn't come through the sim on DraftKings for whatever reason. Probably was projected at 0 ownership. but not going to be a relevant piece. Projected under 10. I'm just going to take him off so he's out of the way. So let's jump into this thing. All right, so I mentioned at the top, Terry Rozier available for his Heat debut. Haywood Highsmith downgraded to questionable. Jaime Jaquez out for the Heat, and Brandon Podziemski is available to play for Golden State. That was all the news that has changed since I first put the projections up. Rest of the news, probables, Nick Richards, Monte Morris to make his debut. Giannis. Why try and say Giannis' last name? Everybody knows him. Antetokounmpo. Cody Martin, Cade Cunningham. Those guys are probable. Questionables, Cody Martin, Cade Cunningham, Mike Conley, Luke Kennard, Terry Rozier, Karis LeVert, Jalen Green, Reggie Bullock, Eric Gordon, Seth Curry, Luka Doncic, Dante Exum, Kyrie Irving, so the entire backcourt for Dallas. Trey Jones, Bruno Fernando, and we had Brandon Podziemski, as I said, is in. Outs, Gordon Hayward, Kyle Lowry, Mark Williams, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Derrick Rose, Jaime Jaquez, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Tristan Thompson, Marjan Beauchamp, Shaden Sharp, Tari Eason, Bol Bol, Dwight Powell, DeAndre Hunter, Wesley Matthews, Trae Young, Moses Moody, Chris Paul, Gary Payton II. Again, FanDuel 6 games from 7 p.m. through the 8:30s. DraftKings 8 games full night. Let's look at some Vegas. In Vegas, one real clunker, 213-point total in that Miami-Memphis game, with Miami favored by like 10.5 points. So really low total, fairly big point spread. There are some playable guys. I mean, some of the Memphis guys especially are hitting the board pretty hard. Conchar is the highest guy on the board at 33.7% win rate on DraftKings. He's only 4,000 again over there with a full complement of minutes. So there are going to be some pieces from that Memphis game, particularly from the Memphis side of that game. And then I think you can get some Rozier if you want him. I think you can get to some Bam for sure. I'm not sure where he is on this list, but we'll take a look for them. But just in general, game environment-wise, that one is really ugly. Top of the board, the Charlotte-Detroit game. Just a 3-point spread there, 231-point total. Detroit actually favored by 3 at home. Minnesota against Washington in Washington. Minnesota favored by 11 on the road. 230-point total. They should dominate that game pretty effectively. Cleveland and Milwaukee. Milwaukee favored by 7. 236.5. Is Doc making his debut tonight? Or is he? Is there somebody filling in? Doc Rivers, the new head coach of the Bucks. Curious to see how that goes. I would have to think he's probably coaching tonight. I'm not sure. What's up, throwbacks? Greg Biancone's here. Beantown's here. What's going on, guys? And Trey's here, of course. I didn't say hi to Trey, but he's here. I responded to him. Travis Wyndham's here. Said hi to Cujo. Power's here. No assistant coach tonight. So he hasn't hired a staff? Is that the idea? Did they clip the staff too? I didn't actually see that. Should I shave this improperly? Now I'm screwing everything up. I'm using this as a mirror. It's just the angle. I tried to trim, I obviously need to trim my full beard, but I tried to trim the mustache hairs real quick earlier, and on this angle it looks like I screwed up over here. Anyway. So, Conchar, top of the board from that Memphis-Miami game. Obviously interesting. I didn't finish the rest of the Vegas rundown there. Oh, they're using the assistant coach. All right, I got you. That should have been my first assumption when you answered the question the way that I asked it. All right, so an assistant is coaching, and then Doc will take over, presumably, later in the week, the weekend, or whatever. I'm not going to, that doesn't really weigh into my thoughts about the game. The Bucks, is Giannis going to play differently because it's an assistant coach rather than Doc in there? No. Same thing for Dame, same thing for everybody. So not really a big impact there. Portland, Houston, 10.5 point total on the board. Houston favored, 10.5 point spread, 221 point total. Houston favored. Phoenix and Dallas in Dallas. Phoenix favored by 2.5, 240.5 point total. Kind of an appealing game that could definitely pop up a bunch of value depending on what goes on with those backcourt guys. Like I said, that entire group is on the questionable list today, so who the hell knows? OKC San Antonio for the DK slate, 8-point total, 8-point spread there. OKC favored on the road, 242 points. That's an appealing one. And then Atlanta Golden State to round things out. Golden State favored by 6.5, 235-point total. Draymond back, pretty much full bore for Golden State, full roster for Golden State. Should be some pieces and parts from that one. No Trae Young again for Atlanta. So we're dealing with DeJounte up at the top of the board. We've got Bogdan to wrestle with and his up and down nature. So we'll get into some of that. Just looking generally at the top. A lot of guys we've seen a decent amount of lately. Between some of these Hawks on that DK slate. We've got Sadiq Bey, DeJounte Murray, Bogdan. Kind of glad that game's not on the FanDuel slate, if I'm being honest. You got Okongwu down here as a cheapo option. Some Chet from the OKC side, or the OKC game. Some Jalen from the OKC game. Wemby. So some of those pieces from those two games are critical on the DraftKings board. Guys that are on both sites. I mentioned Conchar off the top, but Şengün looks pretty good site to site. Obviously double the win rate at 8,300 odds, center only on DraftKings, but you get multiple bites at the apple. On FanDuel, just one center, and he's 9,400 over there, so 1,100 more against the FanDuel cap. Cuts the win rate in half, but he's still definitely coming up a decent amount, and we're getting to him a little bit ahead of that win rate. Conley looking like a major piece again, only 5,900, 41% win rate on FanDuel, getting to him well ahead of that. 31% win rate on DraftKings, getting to him well ahead of that number over there. Slow-mo, looking more appealing on DraftKings, but definitely has room on FanDuel. $1,000 difference site to site against the lower relative cap on DraftKings, not impacting his win rate, 22.4% over there, 35.3% of the top 150. On FanDuel at the higher price, both forward spots, 13.49, right around there in our top 150. Miles Bridges is coming up a lot on FanDuel, a little bit less on DraftKings, but definitely a part of the equation over there. Why are these not sorted? That's weird. I don't know why those guys weren't sorted. Some additional guys to talk about now that I just resorted that column and a few more popped into our view here. So slow-mo dropped down to here. Why the hell is that not sorted? That's so weird. Freddie VanVleet pops onto our board after that resort, 28.1%. Oh, you know what it might have been? I might have not resorted it after I did the rerun with the Terry Rozier news. I think that's what it probably was. So it had a minor impact in some spots. Freddie VanVleet, more interesting on DraftKings at 28%, getting to him 24% of the top 150 on FanDuel. High teens, still looks pretty good over there. Obviously, Freddie's just been playing pretty sick minutes. In 40 games, he's averaging 37 a night, 1.04 per minute. Not a bad option on any given slate. Let's get into some of the positional stuff. Ooh, Power saying late downgrade to Jabari and Jayshawn Tate screams Amen Thompson lock. Yeah, that was an interesting play the other night. Were they? I didn't catch that they were late downgrades. Oh, that just happened. 4 minutes ago. Good call. Yeah, that's one to watch for sure. Anytime minutes open up there for Houston. That one got popular the other day, if I remember correctly. So we've got Jabari at pretty big number. Let's see something here real quick. Yeah, that's weird. So I got Jabari up at 30 plus. We got Jayshawn just in the teens. But that opens up, 40 and change minutes to spread around if those two guys don't play. So that'll be interesting to watch. Thompson right now I had at 16 minutes. He played 32 the last time out. Actually, let me do that on the screen that you guys can see. This was them in the last game. That was with Jay Sean in. Jeff Green was out. Jabari was out. Oh, Freddie VV was out in that one too. That's right. I forgot that Van Vliet was out in that game. It's going to look different than this. But to just kind of get an idea of, capability of playing minutes, there's 32 for Amin Thompson, and there were 27 there for Aaron Holiday. I think they go in Thompson's direction. Like, you can see that in recent trends, going back over, ignoring this game where they both played a bunch of minutes. 18 versus 9, 10-4, 19-6. So Amin's been getting more run. So I would expect, given that Freddie's here for this one, minutes will go, assuming that those guys don't go, minutes will go here, and then maybe a couple go here if we get that big pool of like 40 minutes. Or here, rather. But yeah, good call. That's going to be an interesting value piece to watch. Dallas, also an interesting value piece to watch. News also has Conley likely sitting. Jeez, crazy. I did not see that one. He's been questionable. I hadn't seen a likely sitting. Oh, I did miss that he didn't go through shoot around. He's sick, apparently. So we've got potentially missing pieces and parts all over this thing. I would assume we jump back to another Nickeil Alexander-Walker kind of a night. Yeah, Noah played 30 minutes in Conley's absence the other day. Slow-mo played 22. Shake played 15. Jordan McLaughlin played just 10. So yeah, I think no Conley just makes it non-night again. Nickeil Alexander-Walker becomes a interesting piece of value. I don't know what his price is at. Where are they? So he's all the way down here right now. 4,900 shooting guard small forward on the FanDuel slate, not showing much at all. 4,200 shooting guard small forward, not showing much at all on DraftKings. But pretty decent chance that spikes up if Conley doesn't play. Alexander Walker, 0.85 per minute last year, just 0.73 per minute this year. That's a little behind. He's 0.70 per minute this year. Got him above that for today's game, and would probably, in that role, take him a little bit further north. Came up a lot the other day. Thank you, Roscoe. Roscoe St. Amour. Roscoe, I'm going to assume that St. Amour is like a St. Love, like Amour. I know Amour in Spanish. I think Amour in Italian. So, Roscoe St. Love. Love it, buddy. Appreciate the love that you're showing me. Hit that thumbs up. Thank you for joining us, pal. Everybody hit the thumbs up if you get a chance. Subscribe to the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Subscribe here so that you get the notifications for these random pop-up shows that tend to happen from time to time. So let's get into this guard by guard thing. So Conchar, top of the board again, 18.6% win rate on FanDuel, getting to him a little less than twice that in the top 150. Looks pretty awesome. 33.7% win rate, 49% of the top 150 on the DraftKings slate. Definitely looking like a key piece over there. Watch the news with Mike Conley. If he goes, he's definitely an option. 41.7% on FanDuel, getting to him way more than that in the top 150. 31.6 on DraftKings, way more than that in the top 150 over there. Roscoe's back. Roscoe's French-Canadian. Been watching us a long time. Haven't won any money yet, but eventually it will. Going to keep, I assume, hanging out, enjoying the show, liking, subscribing, and keep on grinding, as they say. That's awesome. Whereabouts in, I love French Canada. Big fan of Montreal. Big fan of Quebec. I've only been to Quebec City once. But it was cool. We were up there for, we did a bunch of trips to Montreal, and we were up there for a show, went to Montreal, and then the show that we were going to was in Quebec City, so we went over to Quebec for a night. which was a blast. Quebec, it's a really cool city. It's a really European feeling city, to me anyway. It's got that old European like fort city kind of a feel in Quebec, where Montreal is more just like city, like a little bit gritty, really cool, fun city. But spent a decent amount of time up in the Quebec province. Can we get into? I know we don't talk American or U.S. politics, but can we get into some Canadian politics? Are you a Quebec province separatist, Roscoe? Free French Canada? Hopefully that one won't have too many opinions flying back and forth in the chat. Not like I'm here talking about the New Hampshire primary. Trey's got it. True patriot love in all our sons command. The true north strong and free. And other lyrics that I'm not going to sing. If I was Eric Lindquist, I'd be belting out the entire Canadian national anthem right now. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander looks pretty good on the DraftKings slate as a pay-up option. 10-1 at the point guard spot, 20.6% of the winners, 18.6% of our top 150 at 1.54 points per minute. He's the highest points per minute guy, highest price guy up at the top of the board. Donovan Mitchell right behind him, 1.37 points per minute, also looks really good. There's about a 3.5 point, 4 point difference between their win rates, but they both look pretty good. 10-1, 9-7. You get Donovan at both guard spots, which provides a little interesting flexibility. Getting to them, 18.6%, 16.6%. I think you'll see a fair amount of lineups with both of those guys in as pay-up guard options, and then a lot of the values falling around them. But we do have a lot of like key values to the slate as a whole coming from the guard spots. There's only so much room, so it'll be interesting to see how the lineups come together. The Hawks I mentioned, no Trae Young creates plenty of opportunity for DeJounte Murray. The rates go up. Bogdan rates actually go down a little bit. They take a little bit of a dip, trying to account for it properly. Still like the player, like the option. So around a point per minute, around 32 to 34 minutes. I think it's reasonable to have him in this range. He's not on the FanDuel slate. On DraftKings, 29.3% of the winners getting to him at almost exactly that rate. Roscoe's down in St. Pete, Florida. I appreciate the clarification that you meant St. Petersburg, Florida, Roscoe, so that I didn't go off on yet another tangent talking about St. Petersburg, Russia. Trudeau's politics are a little scary to me. Surprised he was elected, but not like we can talk. Let's not get into it. Maybe we can't talk Canadian politics. It all just leads back to us. Let's see. What do we got here? Clay looks reasonable at 63. Shooting guard, small forward. I keep picking off these guys that are on the DraftKings slate only. But 13% on DraftKings, getting to him a little bit less than that win rate. So he's probably a little more popular than what his ROI looks like. But at 63, just a good plug and play option from the mid-range. Brendan Miller, a little bit of opportunity for him, 12.34% win rate, getting to him around that level. He's been a 0.84 guy per minute overall in the season, but we know there's upside there. We've seen some pretty decent-sized performances. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out for Charlotte now with after the big move. Malcolm Brogdon, just a little bit of appeal on FanDuel at 6.89%, 11.46% on DraftKings. Definitely more appealing over there in terms of the win rate, but he wasn't coming up a ton in the top 150. Just kind of getting boxed out, I think. That's probably the impact of some of what I said before. These two guys dropping in at high prices, and then just the critical requirement of having like shares of the $4,000 guard spot in one of the other spots. There's just a lack of real estate. So interesting enough looking plays like Malcolm Brogdon, like Max Strus down here at these same spots get kind of boxed out despite still having decent win rates. 11.46, you would think he'd be coming up a little bit more than that. But he's probably owned somewhere in between these two numbers, and then just the lack of available spots squeezes him down in terms of his exposure. But there's no reason you couldn't get there with Brogdon tonight. Player on the trade market, you'd think they're going to highlight him for some minutes. Not that the league doesn't know what Malcolm Brogdon can do, obviously. And there's the other angle of, maybe they protect him. But I think we're more in a showcase kind of a spot right now. Plus, they just need him out there right now, too, with the available bodies. Kyrie, if he goes, looks like Kyrie on the FanDuel slate, 9,800 both guard spots, 8.3, 8.67 in the top 150. Similar results in terms of the win rate on DraftKings, but I'm assuming he's pretty low owned because that's a pretty high number of the top 150 there. Let's see if I have the DraftKings numbers up. Coming up on 5:28. I am going to try and get us out of here by 6 because I like to have that hour to get everything properly updated, make sure I'm on top of changes and rates and getting everything right there. Yeah, Kyrie is owned about 1/3 of that exposure that we were getting to. So that makes him kind of interesting. Just a little bit, is about 1/3 of this in terms of the ownership projection that I was using. So the ownership's a little behind the win rate. The top 150 exposure that we were getting, is ahead of that win rate. 1.31 per minute compares pretty favorably to the 1.37 per minute that we're getting out of Donovan Mitchell for 700 more. That's a pretty critical 700 on DraftKings, the way the pricing works. So Kyrie's an interesting pivot from Donovan Mitchell. The win rate drops 7 points, but we were getting similar exposure to them. FanDuel side, try and find some options there. Donovan Mitchell looks good. Freddie VanVleet looks good. Kennard at 33.6% winner on FanDuel because he's only 5,700 shooting guard small forward. At 5,500 shooting guard only, 13.7. Not irrelevant on DraftKings, but definitely a different kind of a play. Jalen, he's questionable as well, right? Yeah, Jalen's also questionable. If Jalen goes, he looks like a pretty good mid-range price-based option on FanDuel. 42.3% of winners, right around that same number of top 150 exposure. 0.92 per minute, 26% usage rate. High usage guy, plenty of opportunities for him in full starters minutes. Just need him to actually take the court tonight. On DraftKings, 62 both guard spots. Just kind of looks like a playable mid-range guy. 11.27% of the winners, 6% of the top 150. Trey Jones, definitely playable on DK. Just under 10% win rate. At 3,800, Champagne's still hitting the board a little bit. 7% of winners, right around that same thing in the top 150. Shooting guard and small forward. 0.84 per minute. I don't love the Champagne option today. It's more driven by just the pure power of the price. Taking a few minutes away from him here. I don't love that. Chris Middleton, just 4% on FanDuel, 6.3% on DraftKings. This is a good matchup. I like this Cleveland-Milwaukee game, just in terms of an NBA game. It should be a pretty good one. But not really getting a ton of plays from that one. We had Donovan up here. That's really it at the guard spots. I mean, Middleton is playable on DraftKings, but doesn't look great. Playable on FanDuel, but doesn't look great. Karis LeVert, if he goes, just 0.5 on FanDuel, 4.5 on DraftKings at 6,000 shooting guard and small forward. Playable, but not a priority by any means, and just came up in 1.3% of the top 150. Josh Giddey, since it came up the other day. 25-25, he had that 30-minute game. That was with Lou Dort out, and he picked up a few additional minutes. We've been locked in like this mid-20s. The 22, the 19, 25 each of the last two. So we were talking the reason I bring it up, we were talking the other day about, maybe he recoups some minutes as he progresses out of the back end of the legal investigation. Now the NBA is looking into him, of course. And I don't, as I said the other day, I don't think it was entirely based on that. So I think I'm comfy 25 to 28 minutes a night with that kind of an expectation. At 61, he looks playable on DraftKings, but another guy not a priority, 4.26, just coming up in 3% of the top 150. I think you'd rather have some Grayson Allen, more security of minutes for 200 less. Shooting guard is where they have positional commonality. 3.8% win rate, but 6.67% of the top 150 is a 0.81 per minute player versus a 1.13. So maybe the 8 additional minutes is kind of a wash when you take that into account. But I think there's a little tiny bit more ceiling available for Grayson Allen if they both have their normal distribution of minutes. If Josh Giddey gets 30 plus minutes, in no way is he worse as an option than Grayson Allen. Josh Giddey is the better option in that case. I just don't think those minutes are there for him. Where Grayson plays 33.4 a night, could crest in a competitive game into the 35, 36 range. Not to say that that's going to push him into the 40-point stratosphere by any means. He finishes a lot of nights around here, 35.6, and he put up a 20.3. But he does have minutes and time-based upside at this price, which is slightly better than that price, which is why he's coming up a little bit more. Key plays on FanDuel that aren't coming up now that we're through most of the single digits over here. Brad Beal looks pretty good. Not sure why I left the Lee off his name. Bradley Beal, 36.2% winner. I don't think I've ever called him Brad Beal. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody call him Brad Beal. I don't know where that came from. Bradley Beal, 36.2% win rate on the FanDuel slate, 40% in our top 150. He's just single digits on DraftKings. He's playable over there at both guard spots, 7,000. But definitely looks way more appealing on the shorter FanDuel slate. Cade. Was Cade out? I think somebody said Cade is out. Cade is in. All right, Conley's out, Tiz. All right, so if Conley's out, that's going to change the Alexander Walker one. So King of All Trades was saying Cunningham downgraded before. Is that accurate? Hartenstein questionable for Thursday, doesn't matter. Cody Martin available today. Nick Richards available today. Mike Conley out today. Cade Cunningham is out. So King of All Trades had it right. Thought I saw that before. And Beantown. I expect Cade Cunningham to get 0 minutes tonight. He's out. Thanks, Trey. Yep, it is. We caught up. All right, so scratch Cade Cunningham off of your dance card. Pull that back up. The interesting thing there. I just want to see these. So we've got Burks, we've got Hayes, we've got Sasser. And that's been in place. All right, but now we're throwing Monte Morris into that mix. I had him at really minimal minutes, but I think it's totally realistic. Even when I was thinking about Cade being in, I was thinking that it was totally realistic that Monte Morris could step into more minutes than I was giving him, and just shave some away from each of those guys. Now with Cade out, that opens up 30 and change minutes to spread around through those guys, so it's going to be interesting. Keep an eye on it. I don't think there's going to be enough there to make Monte Morris the play, but he's only 3,000 on DraftKings. I was already a little lighter on him than I've seen him in other places. At the dead min, that is potentially going to hit the DraftKings board a little. It won't be great in terms of like a crazy upside play. Like here's where he was before, right? At an 8-point projection, he was still getting there 2% of the time, landing in 1% of the top 150. This is going to jump to 13 points, 12, somewhere in that neighborhood. This'll jump a little bit. I don't know that it's going to vault him into this kind of territory. Double digits, though? Probably. At the dead min? Probably. That's one to watch on DraftKings. At 4,000 on FanDuel, I don't think he gets there. He'll obviously improve over this, But I don't think that's enough on the FanDuel slate. That 3,000 on DraftKings could become interesting. One to watch. As I was saying, so Cade, we scratched that one off the FanDuel list. He was only meh on DraftKings anyway. Grayson Allen, I talked about before. He was 22.1% on the FanDuel slate. We don't have Josh Giddey on that slate, so that comparison is irrelevant. There's also a $600 gap there. But Grayson Allen looks pretty compelling on FanDuel for just 6,000 shooting guard and small forward. Been landing on him a lot. I don't love Grayson Allen. He fits that archetype of player that I don't love. Low usage rate, 14.5%, set 0.79 points per minute. Gives you a lot of these, like I said before, 35.6 minutes, 20 FanDuel points. But just price driven, he does come through into lineups a decent amount of time in Sims. A couple of good players, LaMelo, just 4.5%. Devin Booker, 5.6%. But Book was coming up a little bit more than that in the top 150. A low-owned option, 1.24 FanDuel points per minute overall on the season. I think I've got all the Phoenix guys still below their season-long numbers, just by virtue of all being together now. Yeah, so I've got them right around there for the month of January while playing together numbers, which for Book is actually right around that, 126, actually. So he's a 0.02 of a point up. And then Durant 119 and Beal 0.96. I think all those guys are playable. I do think there's going to be a little bit of, any given night, one of them gets there, the other two don't. One of them's okay. The other one falls a little short. That's just what we deal with on a lot of these, 3-star teams. But as I said the other day, I do think when it's all said and done, the guy who fully reclaims his overall status is KD. And we're seeing a little bit of that already. Luka at 12.2, difficult to reach on FanDuel, 1.67% win rate, but we're getting there more. Getting there at 6% clip through the top 150. So you do want to have a little bit more Luka than the field probably does. Eric Gordon, 13% win rate, 8.6%. Believe he's questionable. If he gets out there, he's moderately playable, but we were getting him a lot less than that win rate. Only 4,500, mid-20s minutes. Malik Beasley at 4,700, small forward and shooting guard, 18.5%, getting to him around that level. Just a 0.69 guy, another really low usage guy. He is firmly on that list and has been for years of guys that I really don't love playing. But at these rates, he'll land in a handful of lineups. I would not be upset about being below the field on a play like that, though. A lot of those guys tend to be at or around, which is foolish to say because that's why it's the projection, right? But the ceiling nights are a lot harder to envision for the Malik Beasleys of the world at 13% usage. Dante Exum not hitting the board at all. 5,900, the price is just too high for that projection. Nobody else really relevant across sites. A lot of this is going to change. We've got several emergent values. We've got several guys in here that are not in here anymore, but we move on. Beantown's grocery shopping. Swing through the cookie aisle and pick yourself out something nice, Beantown. You deserve it, buddy. If Trey Jones is out, Malachi Branham is also 3K flat. It'll be another fun one. I would want news on that one. Trey says, how do I feel about Isaiah Stewart? I hadn't really considered him, but I guess I probably should because he had a monster the other day. I could actually probably give him a little bit more. Am I low on Stewart? Yeah, I might owe Stewart a little bit. Oh, that's all right. That's what I'm seeing. There's minutes available there. I'm sitting here like, why is everybody on Detroit suddenly under? It's because Cade's minutes are available. Yeah, given the idea that he's going to probably, just with minutes spreading around, not that those Cade minutes go directly to him by any means, But he'll probably pick up a little bit, and he's, 61 on FanDuel, 55 on DraftKings. So he's probably on the board here, I'm sure. So right now, he was not looking great. That was at 24 minutes. If I give him another 4 minutes, put him into the mid-20s, he probably picks up a little bit. Like, he would probably be in these, this kind of a range on DraftKings. Probably a little less on FanDuel, I want to say. Tough to say for sure, but he'll be a little bit better looking than this. And, 28.3 minutes the other night, put up a 51.6 in a monster. I think he gets more playable. Let's see. Yeah, he went 28 in that one. That was, I think basically the same situation, right? Pretty sure situationally that one was the same, and you saw 28. Saw 30, nope, excuse me. That was Alec Burks. Didn't play the game before that. 25, 2 games back, 38, 29. Yeah, I probably owe him a few additional minutes. I'll make a note of that one real quick. I'm going to be redoing the entire rotation for Detroit anyway, so. I flagged it, though. All right, so looking at the guys who are actually at the top of the board here. Quarter till already. Unreal. Sadiq Bey on the Atlanta side, looking like a pretty good option. 5,100 at both forward spots, 5.41 DraftKings points per minute on the board, or per dollar on the board, rather. Just a 0.78 per minute guy, but a low price, plenty of minutes available. In 30 minutes the other night on the FanDuel scoring scale, he put up a 24, right around the projected number, a little bit below probably where he was projected there. Another guy, 0.76 per minute, 0.78 per minute, 15.5% usage. Not the highest end usage guy in the world, but there's more opportunities to do things there with Trey out. Miles Bridges looks good on both sides. 26.6% on DraftKings in terms of the win rate. 30% of the top 150 on FanDuel. Just smashing his way into the top 150. 66%. 35.9% win rate over there. That one I got to take a look at. I'm going to see how much he's projected for ownership. Not that I think it's him through wrong. I just want to, when I say take a look at it, I want to see what his projected ownership on that one is. So he's owned, I call it like 20 percentage points below that exposure. So we're getting to him a hell of a lot more than the field. The field's exposure is a little bit, well, actually the projected ownership is ahead of the win rate. The field's actual exposure in this sim was below the win rate, which is interesting. Conley was number 2, so he's going to come off a list. Jalen Green was number 3, Bradley Beal by FanDuel top 150 exposure. Just another piece for Charlotte. I do think it's going to be pretty interesting to watch that shake out now. I did their numbers against, I forget whether it was since the start of January or season long, with no Rozier. Lands Bridges in the 1.16 territory. LaMelo right around 1.40. He's been all the way up at like 1.5. Let's see. Redoing all this stuff that I did earlier. Bridges. That must have done the full year. Since the start of January with no Terry Rozier on the court, Bridges has been at 1.29 FanDuel points per minute. Obviously a significant tick up from 0.99. 1.01 DraftKings points per minute up to 1.35. That's in 119 minutes in January with no Terry Rozier. So I think Bridges looks pretty playable on both sides at worst. What else? Slow-mo is going to look better than this. He's going to pick up minutes. Just a handful, but enough to make a difference. 22.4% win rate at 4,100, both forward spots. 35% of the top 150. He's going to go up. On FanDuel, 13.5% win rate, getting to him right around that same mark at 5,100, both forward spots. Probably going to go up a little bit. Jalen Williams, Okongwu, and Wemby all look very good on the DraftKings slate. Right in that low 20s win rate range, getting to them right around that same exposure in the top 150. All three of those guys in the same lineup works pretty well for me. Jalen at 1.05 DraftKings points per minute on this season. Since the start of January, he's been at 1.21 DraftKings points per minute in 392 minutes. Pretty significant. He's been playing out of his mind. Wemby, speaking of playing out of your mind, 8,300. The only thing holding him down is the 26 minutes. He's at 1.57 DraftKings points for the season. I believe we're still in the 1.9 territory. 1.89 DraftKings points per minute in January in 225 minutes. 1.93 FanDuel, but he's not on that slate. Isaac Okoro on the Cleveland side looks pretty solid on both sides. 4,200, just a value-based play. 4,900 on FanDuel, shooting guard and small forward. 20% win rate, 27% exposure in the top 150. Low usage, low per minute numbers. Say it with me. Don't like that. But all these guys, all those guys that I say I don't like that about. Those are the hold your nose and just play the numbers, play the salary, and the general just rate-based expectations, even when the rates aren't overly appealing, because it sims out and it maths out correctly. 17.3% on DraftKings, right around that same territory in terms of the win rate, or in terms of the exposure. Cody Martin, 28 minutes, another piece in Charlotte where we'll see where things land. 31% win rate, though, getting to him at a pretty decent clip on FanDuel. Low usage, low per minute numbers. 4,300 small forward only on DraftKings, 15.7% win rate, getting to him more than that, 22% exposure through the top 150. Pretty decent range of, it doesn't peak crazy high at the forward spots on DK. You got a nice gentle decline, some 20s, and then a lot of guys in just the high single digits through the mid-teens. Not a lot of high teens, right? We jumped from 15 to 17 directly to 20. So a lot of swappable guys, a lot of similarly priced guys. This whole group right here has an average salary of exactly $5,000 and an average win rate of 11.79. Those guys are so swappable with one another. GG Jackson for 41, get you 21, 5.14 DK points per dollar, 1.02 per minute. We're a little bit below that today, but just under 10% win rate, just 14% exposure in the top 150. Strus in 30 minutes looks okay, 10.5% win rate, but just 3% of the top 150. I don't mind that. Dean Wade, little price driven at 3,600, 9% win rate, 13% of the top 150. There's Giannis, hiding down here with his 1.65 points per minute. 8.4% win rate, pretty solid for such an expensive player. 11,000 power forward and center on the DraftKings slate. Getting into 12% of the top 150 lineups. I think that means we can put our foot down even more on the Giannis gas pedal, I guess. Smash the Giannis button, whatever you want to say. 10% exposure in the top 150 for a $4,800 Jaden McDaniels. Just 0.66 per minute on the season, but it's been a little bit of an uptick recently. On FanDuel, he looks even better at 5,200 both forward spots, 26.8% win rate, 26% exposure. Jaren Jackson also looks much better on FanDuel, 28.8% win rate, 37% exposure. That's a biggie. Power forward and center, 8,700. On DraftKings at 82, same positioning, just a 5.8% win rate, 2% exposure. A lot less appealing on the DraftKings slate. Allen, we talked about. Vince Williams, we touched on, I think, a little earlier. Looks good on FanDuel, not so much on DraftKings. Vince didn't hit any of the top 150 on DraftKings. 1.72% win rate across the full 50,000 sims. But in our top 150 lineups, he didn't get there. Karl Anthony Towns, what a monster the other night, by the way. Joel Embiid went out, scored 70 real life points, 104, I think it was, FanDuel points. And Towns was chasing him for a little bit for the 70-point night. Embiid was the 9th ever NBA player to hit 70 points. And Towns was for a while there looking like he was going to be the 10th on the same night. In all the history of the NBA, it would have been wild if those two had both done it on the same night. I think Towns finished at 62 to 64 points. I forget where. I think 62. But just a monster game. 37.9 minutes, 67.6 FanDuel points. He's still only 8,600 power forward and center on FanDuel. 2.58% win rate. Didn't get into our top 150. 1.59% win rate on DraftKings at 81 power forward and center. Got into, one or two of the top 150. But just, kind of to demonstrate that even with lousy sim results, some of these higher end per minute guys, some 1.17 per minute, very high usage. We know that Karl Anthony Towns on the right night can give you star caliber results. That's why I do say, sometimes with these high priced guys or these upper middle priced star-ish type guys, it is worth just sprinkling a few shares in because they do have those big ceilings. So those big ceilings are what you're paying for with a lot of the value guys. And getting to a Karl Anthony Towns 67.6 point night at power forward, if you had him next to Embiid, which a lot of lineups did, you're talking about half of a cashing score, a third of a winning score from two of your players. Fill that in around the edges, and you are off and running. And Cat was not highly owned, so it does make a little sense from time to time to include some of those options. And I'm not saying, when he comes up at 0% of the top 150 to put him in even 15%. But if you had 5% out ahead of this win rate, a little ahead of the field, I think you're okay. 10%, 15 of your 150 lineups, I think you're okay. KD also didn't land in any of the top 150 on either site. Just a 1.4% win rate on FanDuel, 4.6% on DraftKings. Obviously, another just super high ceiling guy on the right night. But all three of those guys have just been kind of cooking in the mid-range lately. Actually, I shouldn't say that. KD put up 70.2. I missed that in 40.9. That's right. That was a good performance. So, like I said before, KD is the guy that I do expect to shine through as the dominant superstar in that three-man group on most nights. But I'd forgotten about that biggie. Jabari Walker at 18.3% winner on FanDuel, 5,800 both forward spots, not coming through at all on DraftKings. 19.9 for Jimmy, 34 minutes for him, 8,100 both forward spots. It's a pretty high-end player for 8,100. I don't mind that. 1.08 per minute, 24% usage rate, landing in almost 20% of the top, almost 20% win rate, 8.67% of the top 150. I suspect that means he's a little popular over there for that number. Bobby Portis creeping his way into some FanDuel lineups. None of these guys are, by the way, relevant on DraftKings at all. Very low win rate. So as gentle as the decline is up top here, there is a cutoff point here where the floor falls out underneath a lot of these guys. So Portis looks playable on FanDuel. Not a priority, I don't think, at 55, but playable. Little bit here for Kuzma. 7,800 both forward spots, kind of like Portis. 6.96% win rate. Plenty of usage, plenty of upside. Just doesn't deliver it all that frequently. I like Kuzma, but I don't love Kuzma, and I like him better when he's a little bit cheaper than this. So much for 6 o'clock. All right, centers. Let's do this quick, and then I'll pull up the sim results. Miles Bridges is on the board because he's got center eligibility on the DraftKings slate. Şengün looking like the dominant center on DraftKings at 33% and landing in nearly half of the top 150, 47.3%. I don't know that we see that all that often on DK. Right. So let's Beantown got a Friendly's ice cream cup as his treat. I love it. With Ivy out, Sasser got 26 to 27 minutes yesterday and is 3,700 on DK. Thoughts? I just asked because I'm getting on a little bit on Labs. Ivy is out. Yeah, I don't have Ivy out. Did that change? Or are you just saying, is that just the preface of your question? Like, with Ivy out the other night, he played. I think that's what Trey's saying, Tiz. I think Trey's saying, like, yesterday with Ivy out, or the other day with Ivy out, Sasser got those minutes. What do you think of him today? Ivy's in. Cade's out. Ivy's in. Okay. So Trey actually just meant Cade. So Trey, the wild card there becomes like what I was saying before about Monte Morris. I just don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I do think he's going to soak up some of those minutes. Originally, I had put Sasser just down at super low minutes. Just 2. I Hayes at like 12. But there's going to be a shakeup there. I do think it's reasonable to expect that Monte Morris might pick up more minutes than Marcus Sasser in that equation, though. And then Alec Burks will be the play of the day. He'll go out and play 34 minutes and dominate the board. But yeah, that's that wild card. I'm not entirely sure what to make of that yet. Keep an eye on the projections. Let's see if I can. That's not worth doing. Yeah, I don't know that in a projection sense that Sasser's gonna hit the board. I don't know that he gets there for you. Beantown, yeah, exactly what you said. Dilution. As far as Terry Rozier in Miami. I just, it's one of those situations that we absolutely just kind of need to see what they do, how it works out. Even the minutes are a little bit in question. I actually want to see. Did they give me more minutes yet? They did. All right. They matched my minutes. Earlier in the day, one of the other sites across town had his minutes way low. And I was really surprised. Like, not starters minutes. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. I've had him at 30 all day. Or since he announced that he was playing anyway. And I think that's correct. So, and eventually I think we'll see even, a little bit more. But I think for the debut game, that's probably the correct projection to have him at. I dropped him in like right around his current season rate. It's probably reasonable to cut a little bit off of that. And then everybody else gets a little bit of a haircut. So I'll probably be under projections that you see in other places on Bam, Jimmy, Rozier himself, Tyler Hero, Caleb Martin, and then, whoever else on that team. It's kind of a wash. I think we'll probably be a little bit below where other sites have these guys. And I don't think that's necessarily a mistake. None of them were like crashing through the top of the board anyway. Any one of them obviously could succeed and could go out and have a slate bending night, particularly your Bams, your Jimmys. But yeah, I think there's a fairly significant impact. You're talking about a 26.8% usage rate. So it's not it kind of is and kind of isn't a direct replace for the guy he was traded for. Kyle Lowry. But it's not a direct replacement in terms of the usage rate. Kyle Lowry this season something like a 14% usage rate, 13.6% usage rate. So we're adding like 13 points of usage here that needs to sort itself out in the mix. So yeah, I definitely think possibility of dilution for everyone. Possibility that he comes in, immediately knows his role as third best guy on this team, fourth best guy on this team, however you want to look at him versus Tyler Hero. And maybe he just is content to run the offense, facilitate, and take a bit of a haircut in his usage, and everybody else stays the same. There is that possibility. That I don't think he's going to come in and go down to Kyle Lowry level usage. But I do think there's the possibility that he comes in and says, like, hey, I understand my role in this on this team. Let's go compete for a title. It's a good pickup for them, by the way. I like that move. All right, so back to centers. Remember when I said we were going to do that quickly? 2 tangents later. All right, so Okongwu on DraftKings, power forward and center, 4,600, definitely hitting the board. Jaws value base, 0.91 per minute. We all know when he gets a little bit of minutes exposure, he can put up numbers. Wemby looks very, very good, just under 1.9, 1.89 DraftKings points per minute for the month of January, crushing it. Draymond looks pretty playable. 10.4% win rate, power forward and center for 5,800. Getting to him less than that win rate, probably picking up a little bit more popularity. But Draymond back in the mix, doing Draymond things is always interesting when he's affordable to cheap. Not on the FanDuel slate, obviously. Chet, not on the FanDuel slate. Looks playable, looks like himself. Getting to him a little bit more in the top 150 than what that win rate is. 7,300, pretty good price for a 1.22 per minute center. That's not a bad option. 8,500 for Bam. Bam's only at 1.25 versus Chet's 1.22. You're paying 1,200 more for Bam? I love Bam. Bam's a great player. But Chet has been close-ish. Good enough for government work in terms of paying 1,200 less anyway. And you can see that right here in the very similar win rates. Getting to more Chet gives us a little bit more money to spread around to other guys. Dario Saric also hitting the board a little bit as a price-driven play from the lower mid. 5,300 power forward and center, 9% win rate, 8% exposure in the top 150. Back to guys that are on both sides. Xavier Tillman, fairly cheap. A little bit of expectation of minutes. 5,400 at center on DraftKings, 8.49%, 11.3% of the top 150. Nobody's favorite option, but playable. Giannis we talked about. Triple J we talked about. Triple J looks really good on FanDuel. Playable on DraftKings, but not a priority. Rudy Gobert, been crushing it lately. 8.35% win rate on FanDuel, 9.3% of the top 150. A little less than that on DraftKings. 2.28% winner, 7,800 at center only. I imagine just the way that the price plays against the cap with the difference in numbers there. Cat we talked about. Jabari we talked about. Bobby Portis we talked about. Kuzma we talked about. Center looks, I don't want to say straightforward, but there are fewer guys hitting the playability board at the center spot on both sides. A lot of concentration of win rate right here. On DraftKings, among those guys, 3 of whom have power forward eligibility, it's 118% of your win rate, average of 23% among those top 5 guys, and everybody else. A little bit concentrated. I think that's your mix, though. Your Jared Allens, your Wembys, your Okongwus, your Bridges if you want to play him at center, and then Şengün. Let's look at some of these lineups. These are going to be very different from what we'll see, almost to the point where it doesn't make that much sense to look at them, but we'll see where they were coming out. Oh, my God. It's all Mike Conley. This is FanDuel. Let's go to DraftKings. Pop this on the screen for you guys. That is looking ugly. That's a little bit more legible. All right, so we're going to ignore the Conleys. I see a pretty good mix of John Conchars up there. There's a Monte Morris that was, this is pre-edit Monte Morris. Remember I said he was getting into 2% of those winners, and look how high he ascended the board. It just That was like a sub 10-point projection. Here's another one. The power of being the dead mid price. Given this, I'm going to expect that if we bump him to, 12, 13 fantasy points, Monte Morris is going to hit that board pretty hard. Good amount of Bogdan. Fair amount of Kyrie hitting the board here. Şengün picking up a lot of the center shares. So in terms of construction, you take your Conchar, play at whatever guard spot you want him at, basically. But he does look like a pretty critical piece of value. Wherever you don't play him, it looks like you've got room for a solid mid to a like upper middle class type option. Right, like a Trey Jones, a Mike Conley when he was available, up to like a Freddie Van Vliet, up to like a Bradley Beal, a Kyrie Irving. So it's like a 1-on-1 type situation there. Chris Middleton, DeJounte Murray in that same range. Obviously, that's a broad range, but that's what I mean of Chris Middleton, like middle class option. Kyrie Irving, and whoever the hell, DeJounte Murray, upper, especially for Murray when Trey's out. Those are like upper middle. There's a Luka sneaking in. At the small forward spot, that looks like a pretty strong value spot. We'll see probably more Kyle Anderson's creep in here. But between Cody Martin, Brandon Miller, Kyle Anderson, Isaac Okoro, Sadiq Bey, Julian Champagny, David Roddy, that is not a strong position. We're taking cheap options at the small forward spot. Lower mid down, I would say, at the small forward. Power forward looks like you can get spendy around your Bridges, your Wembys, but there's also a good amount of, whoever you didn't play here, there's also spots available for them. Looks like these trend into, that same range of Slow-Mo, some Okoro, some Sadiq. Center is a spendier spot with Şengün. Jared Allen, not exactly cheap, not the highest price player, but pretty solid upside for an upper middle type of a price. Tillman's really the only value center that was hitting the board. Some Chet, a lot of Şengün, a little bit of Giannis hitting there, a little bit of Bam. We get our spendy guard over here too. So guard really almost looks like one value from like the middle, one middle class, like true middle class guy, and then one like high end guard. Where forward, I think we're getting a little bit more 3 mid range or like 2 lower mid range and 1 upper mid range type. Like a Cody Martin, Sadiq Bey, Okongwu. Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, good. Garrison Matthews. Slow-Mo, Okoro, Sadiq Bey. Here's a couple Jalen Johnsons into that forward spot. They go with Cody Martin, Miles Bridges. That's decent. Cody Martin, Miles Bridges, Jalen Johnson. With Chet in the util, Jared Allen, Bogdan, John Conchar, and Trey Jones. That's not bad. I kind of like that little lineup. That one brings you back $379 on average. Damn. Pretty solid win rates there, too. A 0.4% winner. We don't usually crust into the 0.4% win range. That one was a Conchar, Beal, Cody, Sadiq Bey, Şengün, Kyrie Irving, Okongwu, Jared Allen. I actually like that lineup a lot, too. Spends all your money. 0.4% winner, bringing back $500 on the average. 10% chance of getting into the top 1%. 23% chance of cashing. If that's the sort of thing you're chasing. I like some of these. Not Alexa. Nobody's talking to you. The thing is getting more and more sensitive. Anything that sounds remotely like that word pings it now. From the TV, it's not even me saying it. The TV sets it off all the time. Util definitely looks spendy. Whatever you did through here saved you money to get to Util, where, Jared Allen, Jalen Johnson, Donovan, Şengün, Capella, Giannis, Chet. Some decent spend here. This one's got Giannis and Şengün here. Looks like Starsy and then lower mid. Not full-on star scrubs, although that'll change once we plug the mid-price Monte Morris into the equation? Trav, I didn't see Nick Smith. I didn't see Nick Richards either, Tiz. Let's see where they are. Richards came up a little bit. Tiz, 5,200 on DraftKings, 6.5% win rate, 4% of the top 150. On FanDuel at 6,000, he came up 4.5% of the top 4.5% win rate, 1.3% of the top 150. Oops. Let's see where I came down on him. Yeah, I think that's basically in line for Nick Richards. And then Nick Smith, kind of similar. Very low end projection wise. 3,800 both guard spots on FanDuel. Just with a 15-minute projection, 13 FanDuel points, but did land in 6.76% of the winners, 10.67% of the top 150. He's a guy that's been coming up a little bit for me. Why is he not on? That's weird. On DraftKings, he came up at just 0.32% win rate and a 0.0 in the top 150. His price isn't popping in front of me for reasons. Oh, he's probably not in the naming table. Nick Smith Jr. over on DK. So play a bull with a big asterisk in that it's probably not that great a play on the FanDuel slate. And then on DraftKings, Nick Smith doesn't look that great. Nick Richards, I would say, is the better option between the two across both sites. But obviously, you're paying more. He's not really a value so much as like a lower mid type price. FanDuel 6,000 really doesn't do you any favors. 52 on DraftKings, that's essentially the same price against their lower cap. So I don't really love that option. Kyrie, no pregame warm-ups, huh? That'll be interesting. More value is going to come from that Dallas group. I mentioned that before. 6:15. Shit, I got to get out of here. All right, so that was DraftKings. FanDuel in the sim from like an hour and a half ago at this point. That has like 5 guys that aren't playing, has most of the values missing. We're going to do this quick. Hey, look at all the Mike Conley. He's not playing. There's a lot of Luka on that board, which surprises me because I don't really remember talking about Luka all that much. This is just a big mix of all the same names. Like even more so than it normally is. Holy hell. I might punt the FanDuel breakdown. I'll do some of this. Like Şengün is coming through a ton at the center spot. That's going to hold. You'll probably get even more Şengün. You'll see a little less Tillman. You can get to Gobert. You can get to Bam in that spot, but Şengün is the preference. Forward looks save, spend. No, save in a lot of these. Jaden and Bobby, Jaden and Jabari, Jaden and Roddy, Caleb and Slow-Mo, Caleb and Jaden, Caleb and Gigi. This one's Roddy and Giannis, Allen and McDaniels. Power forward looks fairly savvy outside of these Giannis lineups. Unless you want to drop in to the center. Small forward, we're getting decent spend. Small forward looks like a mid-range guy and an upper mid-range guy. Your Miles Bridges is, your Anthony Edwards is. A little bit of spend at the shooting guard spots. Tyler Hero in there, Booker in there. Booker's in there a few times. Donovan Mitchell creeps in there. Bradley Beal creeps in there a little bit. And then point guard was like mid-range, or like upper and a mid-range, but taking Mike Conley out of the equation, injecting lower cost guys into that, it's going to completely change the nature of this slate. So I'm going to punt on going through any more of those because it's just not relevant anymore. With that in mind, guys, I'm going to get out of here so that I can update all this. 6:17 already. We got a 7 o'clock start tonight, so we got to hit the gas pedal a little bit. And I also desperately need to shave my beard. I didn't mean to go back to full screen there, but anyway, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle, jump into the Discord, yada, yada, yada. Hopefully some good stuff coming up. I got to get my act together, get stuff done for our partners of the sim site, acemind.io, which you guys should all check out for your sim needs. I owe them what I want my promo code to be. Then we'll have a promo code for you guys. I also got to get some videos made for those guys. We're going to do some tutorial how-tos. We'll have NFL content coming for the weekend for the big championship games. We'll have full projections up. All that good stuff will be coming in the next day or two. So keep an eye out for that. And barring any unforeseen changes, we'll be back tomorrow to do this, hopefully in a more sane fashion for the NBA slate mañana. But good luck out there, guys. Somebody go win something. Thank you guys. Thank you, Cujo. Thank you guys for showing up. Good luck. I'll see you tomorrow.